Welcome to this deep dive. If you look back at the origins of the English language, the word priority actually came into existence in the 1400s.
Right, yeah.
And for hundreds of years, I mean, it was strictly singular. It meant the very first or, prior thing.
Exactly. It was physically and logically impossible to have multiple priorities.
It really was. But then, somewhere in the 1900s, with the rise of modern industrial society, we somehow pluralized the term.
We literally broke the definition of the word.
Right. Just to accommodate our own stress, I think. We convinced ourselves that we could have like a dozen first things all at once.
Which is just wild when you think about it.
It is. And if you're listening to this right now, chances are you are living the result of that broken definition. You probably have unread emails piling up.
Oh, for sure.
Or a calendar that looks like a Tetris game you are actively losing. And just this lingering, exhausting feeling of information overload.
Yeah, it is basically the defining condition of modern professional life right now. I mean, we are living in a culture that equates constant, frantic activity and endless multitasking with actual productivity.
Which are definitely not the same thing.
Not at all. Movement is not the same thing as progress. Running on a treadmill burns calories, but it doesn't get you out of the gym.
That is such a good way to put it,
Yep.
which is exactly why our mission today is to conquer those modern plagues, right?
Yeah.
The endless decision fatigue and the overwhelming noise.
Absolutely.
So we are pulling our insights today from a really detailed review and some comprehensive notes on an incredibly influential audiobook. And this is tailored specifically for our ThinkIQ audience.
Just a great one.
It really is. The book is called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown. And right out of the gate, there is this massive contradiction we have to confront.
Right. The whole premise goes against everything we've been taught.
Exactly. From the moment we enter the workforce, we are taught that the blueprint for success is doing more. Hustle harder, take on an extra project, say yes to every single opportunity.
Yeah, the classic grind mindset.
But this philosophy completely flips that script. It argues that true success actually comes from doing less, but better.
And that raises a really important question for anyone listening. Why are we so compelled to just cram our schedules until they burst in the first place?
Right. Like, what is driving that impulse?
Well, the source notes highlight a few deeply ingrained psychological traps. First, there is FOMO, the fear of missing out, which basically drives us to grab at every opportunity whether it actually serves us or not.
Oh, I totally fall victim to that one.
Most people do. Then there is people-pleasing, which is this intense social pressure where we agree to obligations we ultimately resent. And we do it simply because we don't want to let anyone down.
Yeah, the guilt is real.
It is.
Oh.
But the most insidious trap the text identifies is what it calls a literal busyness addiction.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because calling it an addiction sounds, well, pretty extreme.
It does sound harsh.
But we really do wear busyness like a badge of honor today. Like
Yeah.
walking into a meeting and saying, oh man, I am just so slammed this week.
Right, yeah.
That has basically become a corporate flex.
It's a massive flex. But what's fascinating here is that it functions exactly like an addiction on a neurological level.
Wait, really? Neurologically?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we cross off a tiny, unimportant task like, say, replying to a purely informational email or organizing a digital folder, our brain releases a hit of dopamine.
Oh, wow.
We feel this momentary surge of accomplishment. The problem is that dopamine hit is cheap. It tricks the brain into feeling productive while completely avoiding the deep, cognitively demanding work that actually moves the needle.
So you're basically feeding your reward system with junk food.
Exactly. And over time, as we try to maintain this illusion of being able to do everything, we run straight into decision fatigue.
I want to focus on that phrase for a second, decision fatigue. Because we throw it around a lot in conversation, but I don't think we always appreciate what it physically means for our bodies.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism. The human brain consumes a massive amount of physical energy, specifically glucose, every time it has to evaluate a choice.
Wait, literally burning fuel just to decide something?
Literally. And it does not differentiate between choosing what to eat for lunch and choosing the strategic direction of a quarterly campaign. Every single micro decision burns cognitive bandwidth.
I love bringing up analogies to help visualize this. It's like treating your day like a buffet, right? You pile absolutely everything onto your plate because of FOMO, but you end up tasting nothing and just feeling sick.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
If everything is a priority, nothing is. So by 2:00 p.m., if you're deciding between 50 trivial tasks, Your prefrontal cortex is completely depleted.
You literally lack the biological resources to make high-level strategic choices by the end of the day.
Which is terrifying.
It is, and that is the core warning of the source material. It plainly states, if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will.
Oof, that hits hard.
Right. Because we cannot logically have a dozen first priorities. We are forced to confront the necessity of making hard choices. We have to stop relying on our depleted willpower.
And start systematically deciding where our energy goes, which I think brings us to the first core principle of essentialism outlined in the text Explore and Evaluate.
Yes, because most of us currently operate on an automatic yes. Someone asks us to join a committee, we say yes.
A new project pops up, yes.
Exactly. We don't even pause to evaluate because the yes is just a reflex at this point.
It's muscle memory.
Right. But the essentialist operates from a completely different paradigm. Instead of the automatic yes, they implement a deliberate pause. The clarifying question they ask is simply, is this absolutely essential?
That sounds so simple, but it's really not.
No, it's incredibly difficult. You have to meticulously evaluate opportunities, commitments, and goals through a lens of extreme exclusivity.
Which brings up a heavy psychological weight, right?
Yeah, the concept of opportunity cost. You can do anything, but you cannot do everything. Every single decision you make involves a trade-off.
Okay, let me push back on that for a second. On behalf of anyone listening who is trying to figure out how to actually do this in real life,
Sure, go for it.
isn't it kind of paralyzing to constantly evaluate every single goal, every meeting, every relationship? If every choice drains glucose, doesn't over-evaluating lead to its own kind of decision fatigue?
That is the paradox most people run into when they first try this out. But the goal isn't to agonize over micro-choices.
No.
You don't create a pros and cons spreadsheet for a Tuesday afternoon status update, you know?
Right, that would be exhausting.
The explore and evaluate phase is about making your trade-offs visible on a macro level. Right now, society's default setting is an automatic, thoughtless yes that just pretends trade-offs don't exist at all.
I see.
When you say yes to a late-night conference call, you are silently saying no to reading to your kids or to getting 8 hours of sleep. And the book explicitly highlights sleep as your most critical asset, by the way.
So essentialism is simply about dragging that silent no into the light.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself, what am I willing to give up to achieve what matters most?
It's forcing yourself to look at the price tag before you buy the commitment. You know, I was thinking about a real-world example here because it elevates this from just a nice self-help concept to a hardcore strategy.
Oh, absolutely. What did you have in mind?
Think about Steve Jobs returning to Apple in 1997. At the time, Apple was producing dozens of different Macintosh models, printers, just all these peripherals.
They were all over the place.
Exactly. They were bleeding money trying to be everything to everyone.
Sure.
So Jobs comes in, evaluates the lineup, and slashes it down to a simple 2x2 grid. Consumer, professional, desktop, portable.
4 products.
Just 4 products.
Yeah.
That is a massive, terrifying trade-off to make as a CEO.
It is the ultimate manifestation of this philosophy. By cutting out dozens of perfectly good products, Jobs created the bandwidth for Apple to make a few great products. He made the trade-off visible.
He really did.
But, you know, realizing you have finite bandwidth and recognizing the trade-off is only step 1. The real friction happens when you have to look someone in the eye and actively protect that newly cleared space.
Which takes us into the psychology of the second principle, mastering the word no.
Yes.
And honestly, that is probably the most uncomfortable part for a lot of people. The people-pleasing instinct we talked about earlier makes no feel like a dirty word.
It really does. We think it makes us look difficult or, you know, not like a team player.
Right. But the deep dive into the source material makes it clear. Eliminating the non-essential is a non-negotiable necessity.
You literally have to do it. To help overcome that discomfort, the text provides a metric that is both incredibly simple and completely ruthless.
I love this rule.
The rule is, if it isn't a clear yes, it's a clear no. Another way the book frames it is the 90% rule.
Right.
If you evaluate an opportunity and it doesn't score a 90 out of 100 on your personal scale of importance, you round it down to 0 and you reject it.
Let me repeat that for everyone listening, because that is the whole ball game right there.
Yeah.
If it isn't a clear yes, it's a clear no.
There is no middle ground.
Exactly. There is no maybe. There is no, well, I guess I can fit it in if I work through lunch.
The reason you have to be that ruthless is because your time is a zero-sum game.
Yes.
Every time you say yes to a low-value opportunity, like an unnecessary meeting that could have been an email or a side project that doesn't align with your goals, you are automatically stealing resources from something that truly matters.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think of your time like an exclusive nightclub, and you are the ruthless bouncer,
Oh, I like that.
right? If a task isn't on the VIP list, it doesn't get past the velvet rope. You aren't just turning away bad ideas. You are actively turning away pretty good ideas so that the club doesn't get dangerously overcrowded for the actual VIPs.
The bouncer metaphor captures the causality perfectly. You are sacrificing the good to protect the great.
But the obvious challenge is execution. How do you play bouncer when the person trying to get into the club is your boss?
That is the tricky part.
You can't just look at your manager and say, hey, that's not a clear yes, and walk away. That's a really great way to get fired.
Exactly. You can't just say, sorry, Bob, your Q3 report only scored an 85 on my internal metrics, so I'm rounding it to 0.
Yeah, that's not going to fly in the real world.
No, which is why the concept of the graceful no, or what they call the trade-up, is so crucial. The text suggests that instead of a flat refusal, you negotiate priority.
Okay, how does that look in practice?
When your boss hands you a new project, you say something like, I would be happy to take this on. Given my current bandwidth, I am currently working on Project A and Project B. Which of these would you like me to deprioritize so I can focus on this new request?
Oh, that is brilliant. You aren't saying no to the work. You are forcing the requester to acknowledge the trade-off. You are making the zero-sum game visible to them.
You are pushing the evaluation process back onto them. And most of the time, they will realize the new request isn't actually as important as the core tasks you are already doing.
So you protect your time without burning political capital. That's huge.
It's a game changer.
But let's look at the aftermath of that. Let's say you successfully play bouncer. You use the graceful no. You clear your Tuesday afternoon for deep strategic thinking.
Sounds nice.
It does. But nature abhors a vacuum. The moment that white space appears on your calendar, someone is going to try to drop a Zoom call into it. Or, you're going to subconsciously fill it by doom scrolling on your phone.
Which is why the third core principle is the linchpin of the whole system, executing effortlessly via systems.
Systems are everything.
They really are. It is not just about removing the bad. It is about structuring your environment so that doing the essential work happens almost on autopilot. You have to actively build environments that deflect interruptions before they even reach you.
I want to pause on the phrase effortless execution, though, because that almost sounds like a paradox to me.
How so?
Doesn't doing really great essential work require massive amounts of grinding effort? Why does the book emphasize effortless?
It's a common question.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm tracking this. It's like bowling with the bumper rails up.
Okay, I'm with you.
Instead of using raw willpower to throw a perfect strike every time, perfectly angling my arm, controlling my breathing, I just put the bumpers up.
You build routines and boundaries, the bumpers that naturally guide the ball to the pins.
Yes. If you put the bumpers up, you alter the environment. You don't need raw willpower to keep the ball out of the gutter anymore because the system you built physically prevents it.
You don't even have the option to mess up.
Exactly. This is vital because, as we discussed earlier with decision fatigue, willpower is a strictly finite biological resource.
Right, the glucose depletion.
Exactly. If you rely purely on grinding it out, you will inevitably experience burnout. Systems offload the cognitive demand from your brain to your physical environment. So practically speaking, what do those bumpers look like in the modern workplace?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it looks like establishing hard rules that don't require daily renegotiation.
Give me an example.
For a manager, building systems means creating standardized intake forms for new requests so you aren't constantly fielding random Slack messages. That's a bumper.
Oh, that makes total sense.
For an entrepreneur, it might mean having a strict policy of not checking email until after 2 hours of deep product development in the morning.
And for a regular professional just trying to avoid burnout.
It's an autoresponder that explicitly states you do not check messages after 6:00 p.m. Period. The system does the heavy lifting, acting as the bad guy, so your willpower doesn't have to.
Modern culture consistently rewards looking busy, but well-designed systems reward actually being effective.
Exactly.
So we've walked through these three pillars. We have explore and evaluate to defeat the priority myth.
Yep.
We have eliminating the non-essential by playing bouncer and using the graceful no. And we have executing effortlessly by putting those bowling bumpers up.
That's the core framework.
Having explored the mechanics of the philosophy, I want to pivot to the actual experience of consuming this source material. Because the format of the audiobook itself comes with some really interesting review data and some specific warnings we need to address.
The data we have from listeners is remarkably strong, actually. It boasts an overall 4.8 out of 5 rating.
That's incredibly high for a nonfiction book.
It is. Reviewers frequently highlight the narration style, describing the author's delivery as a calm mentor.
I like that phrase, calm mentor.
Functionally, this pacing reinforces the book's entire philosophy of intentionality. It forces the listener to physically slow down and reflect deeply.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you try to listen to a book about doing less at 3x speed while simultaneously answering emails and cooking dinner,
You are entirely missing the point.
the medium is the message, right?
Yeah.
But the notes also flag some substantial critiques that you, as a listener, need to be aware of.
Yes. It's not without its flaws.
The feedback points out that the book can be quite repetitive. It also notes that it lacks granular step-by-step tactical details. Like, it's not going to tell you exactly how to color code your specific calendar app.
Right. And perhaps most daunting, it warns that while the concepts sound beautifully simple on paper, they demand incredibly difficult, fundamental lifestyle changes.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
Absolutely. When a text focuses on high-level principles rather than specific software tactics, it requires the listener to do the difficult cognitive work of translating the philosophy into their own specific context.
It doesn't spoon-feed you.
No, and the friction of the lifestyle change cannot be overstated. Establishing boundaries, prioritizing sleep, and turning down a lucrative but distracting opportunity that goes against every survival instinct we have developed in the modern, hyper-connected corporate world.
So what does this all mean? When I look at those weaknesses, especially the critique about it being repetitive, I actually see it through a slightly different lens.
Oh, how so?
Well, I want to pose a question here.
Yeah.
Are those weaknesses actually just part of the design?
Yeah.
Maybe the repetition isn't a flaw.
You think it's intentional?
Yeah, because rewiring a lifetime of people-pleasing and breaking a literal neurological addiction to busyness requires hearing the same truth over and over. You can't just hear the rule, less but better, once, and suddenly change your life.
That is a really sharp observation. It acts as a mirror and a necessary form of conditioning.
Right.
Unlearning a deeply ingrained default behavior is vastly more difficult than learning a new one. The repetition forces you to notice just how many times a day you automatically default to yes.
And you need that constant reminder.
The audiobook has to consistently repeat its core tenets because the world outside your headphones is constantly aggressively repeating the opposite message every time your phone pings.
It's essentially deprogramming.
Yeah.
You have to hear the truth repeatedly until it overrides the noise.
That's exactly what it is.
So as we bring this all together for you listening, let's just recap the journey we've been on. We started by tearing down the priority myth, that historical accident that convinced us our cognitive bandwidth is unlimited.
When it definitely isn't.
Right. We learned that the antidote to decision fatigue is the ruthless application of the clear yes or clear no rule and mastering the art of the graceful no.
Playing the bouncer.
Playing the bouncer. And finally, we saw that to protect that space long term, we can't rely on exhausting our willpower. We have to build environmental systems, those bowling bumpers, that make doing less but better an automatic reality.
And the reason this philosophy matters to your daily life is profound.
It really is.
Whether you are feeling overwhelmed by an endless inbox, perpetually distracted by Slack notifications, overcommitted to projects that don't move the needle, or just incredibly busy but entirely unfulfilled, this framework offers a legitimate way out.
A way to reclaim your time.
Exactly. By focusing only on the essential, you aren't doing less for the sake of being lazy. You are deliberately clearing the runway to create true excellence in the things that actually matter. You are trading the illusion of productivity for real, tangible freedom.
Freedom to be highly effective rather than just exhausted.
Exactly.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering question to ponder. And it builds on that terrifying concept of trade-offs we discussed earlier.
I love this part.
Think about the success you've achieved in your life and your career so far. It probably came from hustling. It likely came from saying yes to every opportunity that came your way, taking on more responsibility, and grinding it out when others wouldn't.
That's how most of us get started.
Right. But ask yourself this. Is the exact habit that got you to this level of success saying yes to everything, the very thing that is now preventing you from reaching the next level.
That's a heavy thought.
It is. You have already mastered how to be busy. Now, it might be time to master how to be essential.